Hi, I'm Greg Hunter. This is the weekly news wrap-up for Friday, February 1st, 2013. North Africa and the Middle East are hot and getting hotter with conflict and possible war. Let's just start with North Africa. I mean, from this a terror situation where they took hostages in a bloody bloodbath where they tried to release them, down to the French taking action against terrorists in Mali, to Libya, where now even the Brits are telling their citizens to get out. It's too dangerous. Over to Egypt, where President Morsi's the new president, the Arab Spring president. His regime is teetering on collapse. Move over into the Middle East, and the big giant-sized boil there is Syria. The better part of 2 years, they've had a bloody civil war that's taken 60,000 lives. The latest, Israeli jets attacked a convoy inside Syria that they say was carrying rockets to be used against Israel. Well, the Assad regime in Syria and the Iranians are vowing to retaliate. The Russians say this is unacceptable. That's a superpower, folks. This thing could spin out of control if Israel, they retaliate on Israel. Meanwhile, the Iranians reportedly are speeding up their nuclear enrichment program. Now, Henry Kissinger, who is at Davos, Switzerland, says, hey, there is a giant crisis approaching with the Iranian enrichment program. It is near, his words. Now, I don't think he's talking about next year. I don't know when it is, but it's probably sooner than later. And the other point I'd like to make is all these hotspots and trouble areas around North Africa and Middle East, there are no peace negotiations going on. None. A zero. Even the UN, with the latest Israeli strike on the Syrian convoy, says it is greatly concerned about this latest escalation, and you should be too. If war breaks out, first and foremost, I will have oil shipments shut down out of the North Africa or the Middle East. I mean, if the Strait of Hormuz is shut down, the Suez Canal, if they start firing RPG at oil tankers, if a suitcase nuke goes off, somewhere with one of our allies, or in, Europe, which also allies, or in the United States, the economy, not only is the economy going to spiral into a black hole, but the world will be thrown into war. Many folks are going to die. This next world war is going to involve some type of nuclear conflict. I hope I'm wrong. This is a very dangerous situation in North Africa and the Middle East, and it's not being diffused. There are more fuses being lit that can explode in the face of the world. It's not getting any better whatsoever. Back here in the U.S., we had a surprise 0.1% contraction. Doesn't sound like very much, does it? And you know what? If you take a look at the mainstream media, here's the USA Today. That was this week. Dip in economy, not so bad. It's not so bad. Of course, the article doesn't bring up the fact, oh, really, it's not so bad? You mean when you consider that we've had QE1 and QE2 and Operation Twist and open-ended QE, trillions of dollars spent, that we get a contraction? The Fed is printing out $85 billion a month to infinity, open-ended. We have the Fed, with zero interest rates and a interest rate suppression policy, and also the government allowing corporations, which the banks are the big beneficiaries, a phony accounting, where the banks and everybody else can value their assets at whatever they think they can get for them in the future. And when you consider all that, we get a contraction? I don't care if it is only 0.1%. What do you think would have happened to the economy here in the U.S., inflation adjusted, if we were printing $85 billion a month in the mid-90s or the mid-80s or, in the mid-2000s? What do you think would have happened to the economy with phony accounting and 0% interest rates? Well, we wouldn't be circling the moon. We'd be circling Mars. It would have taken off like a rocket. We'd have 10% growth. We'd have high inflation, but we'd have high growth. And what do we get? 0.1% contraction. And this is from a government that tells us that the inflation rate's around 2%. Really? If you did inflation the way it was done in 1980 or earlier by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, it'd be around 8 or 9% in reality. So what's the real contraction number? Are we down contracting 1%? A whole percent? Are we contracting 2%? If you factor in inflation and do some real calculating? Who knows? But with all this money printing and all these loose interest rates and suppression and loose accounting standards. We're getting a contraction. That's the best they can come up with. Huh. Oh my goodness. So now what do you think the Fed is going to do now that the economy is contracting? You think they're going to let up on the money printing, or do you think they're going to increase the money printing? Well, I think they're going to increase it, and so does Bill Gross at PIMCO. Bill Gross is nicknamed the Bond King. PIMCO has $1.3 trillion or more under management. And Bill Gross is worried. He wrote a piece on the company website, the PIMCO website, called Credit Supernova. I'll give you the my translation, the short translation, and that is they're going to print money until the credit explodes, and then we're going to have a new system. And so, what's he telling people to buy? Bill Gross? What's a guy who made billions of dollars, a personal fortune? He's a billionaire who made money in the bond market with fiat currency. What's he telling people to buy? Let me read this: gold, or anything that can't be reproduced, such as reproduced as fast as credit. He's telling people to buy real stuff. Stuff, he says, that you can sink your teeth into. That is unbelievable for a guy like Bill Gross. I've said this before. This is like the Pope saying, hey, you know that Christianity thing? I think we should look into Buddhism. This is the Bond King telling people to buy gold. That's frightening. Had a lot of comments on the let's do away with the Constitution piece, by the Georgetown law professor Seidman. I don't mind him saying that. I'm for the First Amendment. Okay? I don't agree with him, and that's the problem. CBS put this op-ed piece out with Seidman without any rebuttal whatsoever. If it would have been rebutted by somebody who actually knew something about the Constitution, not me, but somebody else, he would have cut Mr. Seidman to ribbons. I mean, I'm not even a law student, and I understand that not only do we have the Constitution for way over 200 years, but we also have case law surrounding the interpretation of the Constitution. We have more than 200 years of case law. So Seidman wants to give up on the Constitution and throw all that stuff out. What do you bet his new Constitution doesn't have any right for people to own guns? I don't mind him saying what he said, even though I think it's outrageous and stupid. I do mind CBS putting that on without any rebuttal whatsoever. Thank you for supporting USA Watchdog with your comments and coming onto the site. Thank the few of you that use the donation button. That helps offset the expenses of the site. Really appreciate that. I'm Greg Hunter. That's the way I see it.